Coming up on today's edition of Trailblazer Weekly, we'll take a look back at the basketball results from over the weekend, and we'll chat with men's basketball head coach John Judkins.
Plus, football announced upcoming series with SUU, Weber State, and Northern Arizona. We'll take a look at those games, and we'll chat with women's basketball guard Allie Franks.
It's a loaded show today, and it's all coming up next. Stay with us, because Trailblazer Weekly starts now.
CEC studio at Dixie State University. It's Trailblazer Weekly with Carrick Segmiller. And Drayson Ball. This is Trailblazer Weekly.
We are live inside the CEC TV studios on the Community Education Channel, Radio Dixie 91.3 FM, and the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page with another exciting edition of Trailblazer Weekly. I'm Carrick Segmiller, and joining me as always is Drayson Ball. And Drayson, I was kind of surprised when I got the call that we were doing a show this week because the pattern had been do one show, take 5 weeks off, do one show, take another 5 weeks off. So when they called and said, hey, we're doing a show this week, I said, oh, we thought we weren't doing one till February, but here we are in the CEC TV studios. Loaded show today. Going to talk with men's basketball head coach John Judkins, women's basketball junior guard Allie Franks, some big football series announced, maybe even a little bit more about the WAC and the D1 move. Loaded show today. Should be fun.
Yeah, after going a couple months without having one or two shows, now we've got 2 shows in the last 4 days or 5 days since our Saturday special going to Division I, and so it's got to be a good show. And we got, like you mentioned, Defensive Player of the Week, Allie Franks. Don't forget to leave that out. She'll be on the show as well as Coach Judkins. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely, and you know, the more we do these shows, I mean, this may turn into a daily someday instead of just a weekly. Trailblazer Daily. I might have to rename the show if that happens. That doesn't have quite the ring to it that Trailblazer Weekly does. Let's start the weekend recap, and we'll start with women's basketball. Of course, both basketball teams hosting MSU Denver and then Chadron State over the weekend, and it was a great weekend for the women's basketball team. They started things out on Friday, a 62-55 win over MSU Denver inside the Burns Arena. Allie Franks was fantastic, 19.7 rebounds, made some three-point shots as well. Elisa Van Kampen had a double-double in that win, in that 62-55 win. Coach Gustin told me afterward that he felt like that was probably this team's biggest win, this program's biggest win since he has been the head coach, Drayson. This is his 3rd year here, and you know, that's saying something because last year the women's basketball team had a big win over Academy of Art to start the conference season, and then the next week they brought in a ranked Azusa Pacific team and knocked off the Cougars in that game. But he feels like this win over MSU Denver, with some of the adversity they had to overcome in that game, that this was probably the program's biggest win in his tenure, in his 3-year tenure now here at Dixie State.
Yeah, and they played excellent. I mean, like you mentioned, it was kind of a rough start to that game in the first half. Mariah Martin went down with an injury in that MSU Denver game, and obviously it's tough to lose your kind of point guard, your leader in that kind of aspect early on in the game. But Allie Franks, like you mentioned, stepped up. You see the layup there with the right hand. She just played excellent all the way around. She really carried the load scoring for them in the first half. I wish she had 10 points there in the first half and then 9 added on in the second half. But she was really the go-to scorer when the Trailblazers needed a bucket. She was there to be able to do the bulk of the scoring and really maintain that level of excellence that we've kind of seen from them throughout the season. Obviously, she played tremendous, and that's kind of what we've come to know from Allie Franks. She's that high energy player, that very talented offensive player. Obviously, being able to shoot very well from 3, and then plus obviously she's the defensive player of the week, and she played very well defensively on both sides of the ball. And that's kind of really what stood out to me, obviously, in that MSU Denver game. A very, very good win against a quality team with 2 very good scores. A really good statement win to beat that team.
Absolutely. We'll talk a little bit more about Allie Franks specifically a little bit later in the segment. Like you mentioned, the Defensive Player of the Week. I have some feelings on that, and we'll get to them later. I think that she could have been Offensive Player of the Week as well. But one player I wanted to bring up that had a pretty good game Friday night and then even into Saturday night for this women's basketball team is Maddie Loftus, the transfer out of USU Eastern, one of 2 or 3 players from USU Eastern on this squad. Let's go back a little bit. And the Trailblazers game on January 5th in Golden, Colorado at Colorado School of Mines, she had 17 points. She canned 5 3-point shots in that game. Against MSU Denver Friday night, she had 8 points. She grabbed 3 rebounds. She nailed a couple of threes. And then in Saturday's win, as we move into Saturday, as the Trailblazers defeated Chadron State 87-52 on Saturday after that big win Friday night, Maddie Loftus again had 15 points and again made 5 3-point shots, had a couple assists to boot. You want to talk to someone, this whole team can shoot it, but you want to talk about someone that's really going to lift this team in the second half of this schedule. It's going to be a player like Maddie Loftus that can come in off the bench and give you a real viable 3-point threat from the outside. She can also get inside as well. I felt like she, it was big. They opened that game on the 11-4 run, and they led wire to wire. They never looked back on Saturday night.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, anytime you get a player that comes off the bench and shoots 5 of 9 from beyond the arc, I'll take that any day of the week. I mean, I'll take plus 50% 3-point shooting, no matter who it is. Like you mentioned, Maddie Loftus is one of those players that can come off the bench and knock down a handful of threes like she did on Saturday. Another player that came off the bench, or that game as well, London Pavlica. She played tremendous. How about this for a stat line? 20 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal. She played tremendous. Definitely the best game of her young collegiate career as a freshman coming in. What stands out to me about London Pavlica is she is just uber athletic. I mean, she just oozes with athleticism. But the thing is about being young is she's still kind of learning how to harness that athleticism. And this game might be a signal of what we can expect from a very talented player, London Pavlica, going forward with, like I said, the best game of her freshman or her college career.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a career high 20 points, like you said. Actually, the 5 assists were also a career high. I think she's had 9 rebounds in a game, so the rebounds weren't a career high, but was a huge game for her. And we don't know how long Mariah Martin will be out at this point. Who knows? Maybe she could play this weekend. We just don't know at this point. But you need a point guard, and I should say Rochelle Blazard has been primarily handling the ball in the point in a lot of those situations and has done a fantastic job. But when you bring that second unit in, the freshman London Pavlica is going to have the ball in her hands a lot, and she proved Saturday night that she can be trusted. We saw some of those flashes early in the season as well, and Pavlica had a big-time game Saturday night. Should also mention that defense wins games, wins championships. Trailblazers forced 19 turnovers in that game, only turned the ball over 9 times themselves, and so that certainly is going to help. Talking about defense, how about Allie Franks? You mentioned her Defensive Player of the Week. She averaged 15.5 points per game, 10.5 rebounds per game. She had blocks, she had steals. Just was a great weekend for Allie Franks, and she is rewarded as the Defensive Player of the Week. I feel like she could have had both. The Offensive Player of the Week was awarded to a girl from MSU Denver. The Roadrunners lost both games Friday night here against Dixie State, Saturday night at Westminster. Typically, it's one of those unwritten rules. You got to win at least one game to be even considered. I felt like, Allie probably could have been both, but we'll take the one. Congrats to Allie Franks, Defensive Player of the Week.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she was tremendous all throughout the weekend. 12 points, 14 rebounds in that win over Chadron State. Let's move on to the men's side. The men's team also hosted MSU Denver and Chadron State on Saturday. They got a split from both those matchups, getting their win over MSU Denver and then falling to Chadron State. Very, very good game, interesting game over MSU Denver, a 69-38 win in that game. One of the best, well, I guess I should say the best defensive performance in the school's Division II history, certainly at least. Just limiting to 38 points, MSU Denver. They played very, very well in that second half. That's kind of when they were able to extend that lead and really clamp down defensively. And that's one of the better games from start to finish that we've seen from this men's basketball team, and a very good win.
Oh, no question. And, I'm interested to find out from Coach Judkins. It was the red out Friday night, I should mention. I'm interested to find out, they had the slow start against MSU Denver in the first half. They were able to overcome it to still win the ball game 69-38 with that huge second half. Set those 3 defensive records, including, the one that highlighted them was you mentioned it, the single game record for least points allowed. It was 38 points. And they were able to win that ball game. The one thing that concerned some people still was the slow start, because then you saw it the next night, slow start. Dixie State could not dig out of it the next night. So I'm interested to kind of ask him about that a little bit when we have him on the show here in just a few minutes. But yeah, you got to give credit where credit is due, because these guys, they found themselves down double digits early in that matchup, and they were able to fight back and win that game. The Trailblazers, it was 19-18 at halftime, and for our television and internet audiences, you just saw that capped off those highlights from the game. Jack Pagankoff's step back 3 on the right wing, the buzzer beater to make it 19-18. It was Dixie State's first lead in the game. How about outscoring MSU Denver 50-20 in the second half? And Matt Conway, 19 points, 13 rebounds. I've noticed that, kind of as Matt goes, this Trailblazer squad goes, and he had a great game. Jack Pagankoff had a great game, his first game back after a slight injury. Transitioning into Saturday night, another slow start, and they were able to fight back, got into the second half, and you said you were watching the live stats. You got it down to 5, down to 3, back out to 6, down to 2, back out to 7, down to 1, and there was a big turning point in the second half. The Trailblazers had it down to 1. They had possession, and Dixie State attempted a 3-point shot from the right wing with over 20 seconds on the shot clock. Missed. Chadron State went down, scored, and the next couple of possessions, there were some quick shots like that again, and things just kind of started to spiral. It went up toward a double-digit lead again. Dixie State got it back. Andre Wilson had an opportunity to tie, was fouled, made 2 or 3 from the free throw line, and then his potential buzzer beater with a hand in his face, was off the mark. It was all he could do to even get that shot up. There's a couple seconds left. But a tough 64-61 loss that, you go 20 of 34 from the free throw line. You're out-rebounded 46-27, and it's one of those, when Coach Judkins got over to us in the postgame, he kind of just said, I'm not sure at this point where to go. We'll look at it, we'll figure it out over the weekend. He said right now we're just a little bit frustrated, and as are the guys. I mean, the guys don't want to go out and play like that as well. They've got to find something. The more games you lose, you're in danger of not making it to that RMAC tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of things you can point to during that game as far as a statistical standpoint. I mean, the Trailblazers got out-rebounded 46-27. I mean, that's glaringly one-sided, and a lot of games, in my opinion, are won on the glass. If you out-rebound your opponent, a lot of times you're going to win that game. Not only that, the Trailblazers only had 2 players in double figures. Matt Conway, as good as he was, he struggled a little bit more on Saturday, and Andre Wilson was really the one that stepped up and played very, very well. Was efficient, 50% from the field and 3 of 4 from downtown. Got to the free throw line 7 times. But I think you just need to find more consistency. I mean, obviously, one night you'll have Matt Conway, the next night you'll have Andre Wilson, maybe it's Zach Frampton or whomever. You have to have a more consistent player. Last year they had Trevor Hill, a guy that could do a lot of the stuff, that kind of stuff for you. Or even Brandon Simister on some nights could hit a handful of threes. But I think this team, just because they're kind of so new and they haven't really ever played together, are lacking a little bit of consistency and cohesion early on in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Tough loss there. Dixie State will bounce back. They're on the road. We'll talk a little bit about that later in the show. One of 2 consecutive trips to Colorado, headed to the Denver area this weekend and take on Colorado Christian and Regis. And got to find a couple of wins on the road now, with dropping a few at home if you want to still make it into that RMAC tournament. If you want to read about those games more in depth, see photos, see the stats, go to DixieStateAthletics.com to check out all of that info. We're running out of time in this segment, but one more thing, just in case you haven't heard already, and if you haven't, I don't know where you've been, under a rock, I don't know. Dixie State announced on Friday it has accepted an invitation to join the Western Athletic Conference and make the move to Division I status beginning in July 2020. The football team, as announced, will compete as an FCS independent, and with that, the Trailblazers are already working on those schedules, and yesterday announced future series with SUU, Weber State, and Northern Arizona. Let's talk about those quickly. You don't have a ton of info on those games right now. Some game dates, but we know when, what years they're going to be in. when those will be played. Let's start with the SUU series. Obviously, I don't know, that's the big one because that's the first D1 game Dixie State's going to have. You travel up short drive I-15, September 5th, 2020. No better way to start the D1 era than taking up, the short I don't know what you call it, the I-15 rivalry, the Washington County, Iron County rivalry. Go up, play SUU. They'll make the return trip. Won't be for a couple years because Dixie State will go back up and also open the 2022 season at SUU. And then 2 years after that, in 2024, the teams will play in Trailblazer Stadium in St. George. But that'll be fun to play SUU. And then there's got stuff scheduled with Weber State. Like I said, only one date so far that's at Weber State, October 10th, 2020. But this 3-game series is bang, bang, bang. 2020, 2021, then at Dixie State, and then 2022 back up at Weber State. Northern Arizona, a 6-game series that doesn't start for a little while. They will play in Flagstaff 2023, 2025, and 2027, whereas they'll play at Dixie State 2024, 2026, and 2028. You feel like some of those games are a long way out. You always see Division I teams kind of scheduling that far out. But Dixie State, as an FCS independent, they're going to be in charge of filling their entire schedule. Got to start somewhere, and that is certainly a great start to get that 2020 schedule started. Exciting for Dixie State to have SUU, Weber State, Northern Arizona, and even more games to be announced soon in the future.
Yeah, I don't think exciting is the right word to use. I mean, if there was a word bigger than exciting, I think that one might be more adequate. But yeah, I mean, can you imagine the SUU rivalry, how big and how important that's going to be for this school and this community? I think it's just going to be excellent. Weber State, obviously, and then Northern Arizona, all going to be great matchups, and I'm looking forward to it.
So certainly have run out of time to break it down any more here on this segment. We got to run to break, but if you want to read the full release, head over to DixieStateAthletics.com. I believe it's still pinned as the top story on the homepage. So you just click that, see a quote from our athletics director, Dr. Jason Booth, and just read all the info about this series. And I can promise you there'll be more to come because Dixie State's got to fill that 2020 schedule and beyond as an FCS independent. We got to take our first break. When we come back, men's basketball head coach John Judkins will join us here in studio, talk about the first half of this team season. We'll ask him about a lot of stuff, including how you continue to turn things around and fight through this roller coaster stretch of the schedule. We'll talk with Coach Judkins next on Trailblazer Weekly.
Like John McCain and other people would just sit there quietly on the sides, and that many Republican activists would refrain from registering their disapproval in the peanut gallery?
Some might argue that Republican activist is an oxymoron.
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of activism.
Right.
But do you see what I'm saying? If you just flip it right over on its head.
I would like to flip it on its head, and in fact, I'm already doing that because my own position is free speech is free speech. Okay, and I'm kind of advocating for something that I'm really not supporting in this respect. As far as protesting or not protesting and being able to recognize your audience, what we need on either side, I don't care where you're coming from, is the ability to recognize the audience.
Where do you find the titans of classical music in St. George? Classical music on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM. Where do you find the legends of jazz? Evenings on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM.
Trailblazer Weekly is presented by the Dixie State Campus Store, the official store for Trailblazer and Dixie State clothing, as well as cheap textbooks, discounted computers, and supplies for students. They're located in the second floor of the Gardner Center and are open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. during the week. Closed on Saturdays and Sundays? You can stop by any time because they'll be loaded with great Trailblazer swag all the time.
The men's basketball team is currently fighting for a spot in this year's RMAC tournament. And here to help us break down the season so far is head coach John Judkins. Coach, thanks for taking some time being here with us. I know it's kind of right up against practice. We appreciate you taking the time to be here. We haven't had you on the show yet, and excited to have you on the show here on Trailblazer Weekly, just about halfway through the RMAC season, believe it or not. I mean, this year's just been flying by the whole year. Football flew by, and now basketball is almost halfway through. And let's just talk about the first half. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster, a little bit of an up and down, and maybe you probably didn't see it all coming. But when you graduate 6 seniors, I mean, there's bound to be some growing pains. Let's talk about that first half. How would you analyze that first half of the season so far?
Well, it's been tough. I give the RMAC a lot of credit. It's a lot better conference than maybe people thought it was. We've played some teams in the RMAC before, so I knew that. We used to play Colorado Mesa all the time over Thanksgiving, so we know how they play. It's a tough physical conference, which is kind of fits us. You're right. The 6 seniors, that was tough, but we have guys back. We have Dub Price, we have Bubba Miller, we have Quincy Matthews, we have Julian back, we have something else that's a senior, but we got those guys back. Just didn't see as much time maybe last year as with those other 6 seniors we had, so we knew that was going to be a growing pain a little bit. The hardest part for us this year, there's no excuses, I'm not trying to say that, it's just our injuries. We've had guys get hurt, and then we had guys that decided not to play because of an illness, and it's hurt. I mean, Austin's had 1 game, and he's averaging 10 points and 8 rebounds a game, and he's probably going to leave with that. So there's things like that we kind of were not expecting. We thought that we'd have Austin the whole season. We thought we'd have Riley Court the whole time. We thought we'd have guys like that we just don't have now, and so we have to adjust. We have to do a better job that way. But like you said, it's halfway. We've learned a lot. The back-to-back games are hard. People don't understand that, but as a coach, you're preparing quick after a Friday night game. You're trying to get ready for a Saturday night game. The other thing that's hard too is everybody's out to get us. Welcome to the RMAC is kind of how it is, and those coaches are trying to help them beat us, and who do we talk to? We don't know anybody yet, so we're trying to do that, and we know that that's going to happen, and then they know each other's stuff. We don't know anybody's stuff, so it takes us a while to learn. We got film and all that, but back in the Pac West, I knew what Point Loma was going to run. Every year I kind of had an idea what they were going to do. I knew what Chaminade was going to do. I knew what Hawaii Pacific, whatever. You knew that. This year it's not. It's all brand new. So it's taken us a little bit of time to adjust to their scheme and their game plans. But again, I think we're there. The last couple of games, I thought we made a move forward. Okay, here we go, and then all of a sudden we take a step back. So as long as we're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back, it's better than doing the other way around. And I think we're getting close. So we're going to finish this last part of the season, like you said, trying to get into the tournament. That's our goal right now. Is we got to get in those top 8 spots, and we have half a season left. So we're going to do everything we can to get there.
Chatting with head coach John Judkins of the men's basketball team here on Trailblazer Weekly, and we've got a lot to talk about here. We'll talk about those back-to-backs a little bit later in the interview, Coach. We'll ask you about them a little bit more in depth. But like I said, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. There have been some frustrating things, but certainly there have been some positive things. There have been, Matt Conway's kind of turned into a scoring leader, and Andre Wilson had a great game the other night, and hope you can kind of duplicate that going forward. What are some of the things that you've seen that you've liked over the first half of the year? I know sometimes it's, when you're can be frustrated, and when you're in the middle of maybe some frustrating losses, those kind of loom large, but certainly there are some positive things to look at as well.
Well, you're right, and we, as a coach, you kind of see when a game's over and you're driving home, you kind of think of all the negative stuff, it just happens. I'm not really a negative person, but it just happens. And then you get home and you throw the tape in, or maybe the next morning or whatever, and you see, hey, we did some pretty good things. We did this right. Yeah, we goofed up here, but so I see a lot of that. Again, Matt Conway's a new one that transferred in. Same with Andre, same with Jack. I think those 3 right there have really started to catch on to what we're trying to do. I look at Matt Conway, for example. He's played for 3 different coaches in 3 years. He went to Salt Lake Community College, then he went to Abney University, and now he's here with us. So it's hard for him to kind of get, what does this coach want me to do, and so forth. And I think he's catching on to that. Offensively, he's scoring for us. He's doing what we ask him to do. We just got to get him defensively a little bit better and rebounding. The games that we've won, I look at the stats, and Matt's had a good game. he'll have 18 points, 13 rebounds. He had the other night on Friday. The next night he gets 2 rebounds. So I gotta get him to be a little bit more consistent. Andre, like you said, I thought he had a good week, a good week this week, and I thought Saturday, the second half, he played really well, and then Jack played really well on Friday night's game. So we're just having that issue of we wish we could play good one night instead of one guy here and one guy there the next night. We just got to get that combination going. But when you have a new team like this, it's going to take some time. But now it's halfway done. There's no more excuses. We got to get it figured out.
Coach, obviously coming from the Pac West into the RMAC, Pac West Conference you were very familiar with and grew comfortable with and knew, the teams in there and the coaches and the philosophies of those coaches and that kind of thing. Coming into the RMAC, you don't have that luxury of knowing necessarily a lot of the coaches or the philosophies or what each team was trying to do. How tough has that been to kind of, come in not being familiar with those philosophies night in and night out?
It's really hard. And a lot of people think, it can't be that. It is tough, and I go back and I think of the Pac West. We were there, 12 years? 12 years, so we kind of knew what was going on that way. But I go back and look at the first couple of years when we joined the Pac West, it was a lot like this. We were adjusting, we were learning, where do you stay, where do you fly into, where do you travel to, where do you go eat. There's things like that people don't realize what you do on the road. And being schools so far away from each other, it takes a little time. So this year is just kind of a learning thing. I kind of joked with Coach Feller, with Robin, and said, hey, way to make it look so easy, because she goes through and she said, hey, I just had a special team that really got it. And again, it's just going to take some time. But again, our bullseye's on our backs because we're new in the conference, and now the bullseye's even bigger because they heard the announcement of us going Division I. So now everybody wants to play us to be their best game. So we have our hands full, but we want that. We want teams giving us their best game.
Obviously, one of the biggest differences, you mentioned a handful of differences from the RMAC to the Pac West. Also with that is the scheduling and the back-to-backs, Friday, Saturday back-to-backs every week. How tough has it been for your team and you personally as a coach that's coached a lot in the Pac West, adjusting to those Friday, Saturday back-to-backs?
It's hard. It's a lot harder than people think. The only thing is we knew it going in that was going to be the case. We tried to change it. They just wouldn't do it for academic reasons, which I get. But if athletic reasons, it's hard to play 30-something minutes on a Friday night. And if you get hurt or something happens or beat up, the next day it's hard to even get out of bed. And so to have those, it hurts. For coach's part, it's tough because we're trying, you try to take one game at a time. That's where we always say, and we try to prepare for that Friday night game. And then Friday night, we're quick turnaround, trying to get it ready. Yeah, we have some ideas of what they do, but we're focusing on that first game. And so it takes some time that way. But, everybody has to do it, so it's not like we're the only one that has to play back-to-back. We just got to get used to it. And when you're, 12 years in the RMAC or the Pac West, and you had a day in between. In Hawaii, sometimes we even had 2 days in between when we played those 3 or 4 games over there. So it's something different for us, and we're learning with it. We found we're trying different things like bringing food into the hotel on a Friday night after a game instead of going out and eat, so we can get them in and get them to bed as quick as we can and give them the scout reports and just things like that are a little bit different than we're not used to. But we'll get it figured out.
All I know is I don't envy you as far as having to drop those game plans for the Saturday night, because I know for me, even on the broadcast, it's a quick turnaround as well. It's kind of similar. I spend a lot of time looking at that Friday night game and the opponents, and all of a sudden you got to turn around and you got to, a whole other group of guys that you've got to know. Let's talk about this. Is one of those kind of elephants in the room right now that I'm sure you haven't been shy to bring it with your guys. It seems like the last 3 games or so, there's been a little bit of a slower start. Some of the games you've been able to dig yourself out of those holes and then have a big second half like you did on Friday against MSU Denver. Saturday, it looked like you were going to get over the hump a couple of times after you dug yourself out of the hole. Couldn't quite get there. When you're looking at maybe not even this team necessarily, but any team, what's the recipe for eradicating a slow start? What do you try to push your guys to do?
It's a good question. We've been scratching our heads about that too, as well as coaches, because it's been the last 3 or 4 games we've gotten down by 10 really quick, and then we come out and get close and go into halftime. Then we come out that second half, and you and Devin always ask me, "What'd you say in there? You got some special stuff." It's working in the second half, and I get on them. We adjust. some things the second half better. That's why we're better. I think our team adjusts on the fly better. You come into a game plan, you have a game one, an A plan and a B plan, and you try to get it to go, and you got to make those adjustments. But we just have been slow starts, and we don't get it. We don't understand why are we not coming out ready to play? Is our warm-ups bad? Is our preparation before the game bad? Is it more them? Everybody gets wound up a little bit different. Some guys like the music. Some guys like to think about the game. What do I got to do? Some guys like to hey, let's go and get everybody talking. They got to find out what works for them because not everybody's the same. And so we've really stressed this week of, hey, come out ready to practice. Give us everything you got. It's the same thing in the games. Those first 4 minutes, we call them battles, 4-minute battles. We've lost. Out of the games we've played, I think we've lost everyone but 2 of those 4-minute battles. So we got to do a better job of getting a better start. It might be changing up the lineup. Who knows? We got to do what we can to change it.
Winding down here on the interview, we're chatting with head coach John Judkins of the men's basketball team. Now comes the time that we really look forward to in the interview. We get to know these coaches a little bit better. We call it some rapid fire questions. Coach, we're going to have some fun with you. I've got a couple.
You didn't bring those to my attention
Trayson's
first.
got a couple. Hey, they're easy. They're easy stuff. This could be current or past favorite basketball player.
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird.
Larry Bird, I like him. One is he makes everybody around him better. He's not very athletic, but he just gets it. He just gets the game. He knows what's going on. So that was my pick.
All right, here's one of the hot button questions going on right now. Is who's the greatest player of all time?
Ooh, that's a tough one too. I still stay with Michael Jordan. The things that he's done, and we were talking about the other day on the bus. If Michael played these days, he'd be shooting 40, 50 foul shots a game. Back then it was rough. It was the bad boys from Detroit. It was knock them down. Now you touch them. I mean, Harden shoots 40-something foul shots. So I think he would even dominate even more than he is too. But I'd say him.
This is kind of a 2-in-1. I mean, you played at a pretty high level of college basketball. What was your favorite venue you ever played in, and then the favorite venue you've ever watched a game in?
Ooh, that's another good one. I never got a chance to go back to the Garden, the Boston Garden. I wanted to try to get back there. When my brother played for the Celtics, and Larry Bird was there, I was trying to get back there and see that. Now it's a whole different thing. Back when I played, I think the Forum was once pretty fun. When I played for Utah State, that's where we had our tournament, was in the Forum. That was pretty cool. And then I don't know. That's tough to decide that, but I'd probably say that. I'd probably say the Forum, and then I think even the Jazz thing. I went up to the game this last week and watched them over Christmas. Watched them play the Thunder, and man, that arena is unreal.
They've done some incredible things up there over the last few years, renovating and whatnot.
It's big time. So that's pretty cool to have that right here in your own state.
Got time for one more rapid fire question, Coach. Best coach you've ever met or worked with or associated with, pro, Division I, Division II, whatever it might have been. Best coach you've ever
been around?
Got advice from, been around?
Well, being with here in the state of Utah, I mean, my brother coached with Rick Majerus at Utah, and he did things. He knew the game. I'll tell you what, you give him. He's kind of like a Bobby Knight. You give him a week to prepare. Look out, he knows how to prepare. He wasn't great with the PR part with the players, but he was really good with preparing and getting guys and taking things away. I'd say he's one right there. Jerry Sloan would be another one that I met with that way. I talked to John Wooten and stuff like that, but never got to sit down with him and kind of pick his brain. But there's some good ones. I mean, I would love to go, drive around, go to Duke and go to Kansas and go sit down with these coaches and watch practice and learn. That's something that I've always wanted to try to do. It's just they're so busy, it's hard to get in there. But I think we can always learn. I always tell my assistants, if you think you've known it all, get out of it, because you need to learn every single day. Try to learn something from somebody else, and that's what I try to do.
He's men's basketball coach John Judkins. We appreciate your time, Coach. We've run out of time on the segment, but good luck in the Denver area this weekend, and then bus ride probably the next weekend, right, to Grand Junction, and then to Gunnison. So 4-game road swing for the Trailblazers, and then they're back in the Burns. Finally, first weekend of February and most of February in the Burns for that kind of month-long
Yeah,
homestand.
it'll be fun to be home. I mean, I'll tell you, this last week was nice. That Friday night game was amazing. Of the fans and the red out and stuff. We do appreciate everybody who comes out. That home court advantage is huge for us. So we can't wait to have a month where we have all these home games. So please come on out and watch, and appreciate everybody for their support.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to switch things up a little bit. We're going to have our weekend preview in the next segment so that women's basketball junior guard Allie Franks can join us after practice in the final segment of the show. More Trailblazer Weekly right after this timeout.
Fast-paced family life in need of a slowdown?
Hello, I'm Dr. Spruce. Did you know all those green shapes on maps are parks and forests? It's true. Visit discovertheforest.org and plan to visit a park or forest near you, instead of just wondering what it would have been like.
While the word forest might make you think of distant lands from far, far away, please note parks and forests are closer than you think, which means things like beautiful scenery, fresh air, and family time are also closer than you think.
Hey guys, how are you today?
Good.
I'm here to talk about how with technology you can make amazing worlds. Come with me. My team and I bring the Halo world to life.
Is that you?
That is me. I wasn't a math genius and I knew nothing about coding. But you guys do. You guys have the power to change things.
I want your job.
I want you to have my job.
Trailblazer Weekly is the official show of Dixie State Athletics. You can keep up with all the Trailblazer athletic action with pictures, stats, and game recaps at dixiestateathletics.com. While you're at it, don't forget you can follow our show on Twitter as well with @DSUBlazerWeekly.
We're mixing things up this week in today's show as we've got our weekend preview in our third segment. We're doing that because we'll have women's basketball guard Allie Franks on the show in just a few minutes in our next segment to close things out. But Carrie, let's get things started with our weekend preview. Obviously, men's and women's basketball are in play both this weekend at Colorado Christian on Friday, and then going forward on Saturday they will play at Regis in Denver, Colorado. A very good matchup scheduled for this weekend. What do you anticipate going forward?
Yeah, it should be good games for both teams. Always tough on the road in the RMAC. We've talked about that. The fortunate thing for this weekend is that I know the women's team is, I think maybe even the men's, if you're lucky, you can catch a flight even out of St. George. And it's in the Denver area, both schools very close, within an hour of one another. In fact, within minutes of each other, I think. And so they'll be able to play at Colorado Christian on Friday. And I take a quick look at that women's game. Colorado Christian women are in 8th place right now, 7-8 overall, 5-4 in the RMAC. This trip is huge for the women's basketball team and for the men's basketball team because they've got to play their way into the tournament. But the women, with a couple more wins, might even be able to play, depending on what else happens, could play themselves back into that 8 spot this weekend. So Colorado Christian on Friday, they are 7-8 overall, 5-4 in the RMAC, just a game ahead of Dixie State in the RMAC play. On Saturday, they'll play Regis, and on the women's side, the Regis women are 9-5 overall, 5-4 in the RMAC, just like Colorado Christian. These will both be tough games, but winnable games for the women's basketball team. If they can play like they've been playing at home, they'll be in good shape. On the men's side, on paper, Dixie State should be able to compete very well on Friday at Colorado Christian. Colorado Christian right now 15th place overall in the RMAC, 3-12 overall, 1-8 in RMAC play. However, Saturday night will be a very tough game. Regis is in 3rd place right now in the RMAC on the men's side, 10-5 overall, 7-2 in the RMAC. But very, very important games this weekend for both the men's basketball teams and the women's basketball teams, Drayson, as they look to try to move up. You're in a spot where you can't really afford to drop many more games if you want to make it into the top 8 and play in that RMAC tournament and have a chance to maybe Cinderella through that tournament and get a bid into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you talk about that, and it comes down to this point in the season where you've got to win games. I mean, you can't. You obviously got to protect home court, and then any wins you can get on the road are obviously beneficial. For the women's side, you can go into this weekend, you can do a lot of damage. You're 4-5 right now in the RMAC. You will get a couple of wins against 2 teams that are both 5-4 in the RMAC. You would leapfrog both of them in the standings in just one weekend. So a lot of ground to be made up from the women's side. And then obviously on the men's side, a very similar situation where, you can make up ground on teams that are ahead of you. Obviously if you can beat the teams that are ahead of you, it does multiple things. It separates you from the bottom and also leapfrogs the teams that are ahead of you. Obviously that's kind of a no-brainer, kind of a simple thing to say, but very one thing you have to keep in mind when you're going forward into this tough stretch of the RMAC conference play. Obviously, a couple of road games here this next couple of weekends before you get back into Burns Arena for a long stretch in February. If you can get yourself in a good position on these couple of road trips, you can, really make up some ground in February and maybe even get to a top seed, a home conference tournament, perhaps, a couple games at least at home, perhaps, with that easier home slate towards the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on. Women's swimming. This won't be as long of a segment. We've got Allie Franks getting set to join us. I want to make sure we have plenty of time to talk to Allie and about the women's basketball team. But women's swimming will host its only home meet of the season on Saturday at the Washington City Community Center. They'll host Western Colorado. Fun for the women's swimming team. They don't always get to have these home meets, and good opportunity for the Trailblazers to have a home meet. If you're a fan of swimming, it'll be fun. Head over, check out the women's swimming team at the Washington City Community Center. Then that's really all that's going on this weekend. It's the winter season, Drayson, so really just basketball and swimming. Not a whole ton to see, but big basketball games and a fun women's swimming meet here in St. George.
Seems like every time I go on Twitter or anything like that and see the women's swim result, it seems like they're always setting new records and things like that. Obviously, it's a very young program, and that's kind of to be expected. But a lot of good things coming out of women's swimming, a subject we don't talk about a whole lot. But very good for them to get a home meet here, which I'm sure will be one of many once we get the new Human Performance Center and that beautiful, beautiful facility over just on the west side of campus.
Oh, exactly. Once that facility is open, it's going to open things up to be able to have a lot more at home. I want to get you a time on that. It's 2 p.m. over at the Washington City Community Center on Saturday if you want to go and support the women's swimming team. So we've got to run to a break. Again, like I said, quick segment there to let you know what's coming up this weekend. Quick break. When we come back, Dixie State women's basketball junior guard Allie Franks will join us. She's the reigning RMAC Defensive Player of the Week and Dixie State's leading scorer. A lot to talk about with her coming up right after this time out on Trailblazer Weekly.
Okay, we are inviting you to join us for Talking Point Live.
Coming to you, not necessarily live, but tape delayed on the Community Education Channel at 9:30, 12:30, and 4:30 daily, from what I understand. But you can also pick it up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/talkingpointlive.
And respond to us, right?
Please,
on
let
Facebook.
us know, because it's important to understand not only how our conversation is going, but maybe how is it affecting you at home as well. All right, Eric Young,
Jennifer Kohler.
Talking Point Live. We'll see you.
Radio Dixie 91.3. We don't play that. Nope, not that. A big fat no there. That's what we play. And stuff like that. On St. George's only alternative, Radio Dixie 91.3. Oh, and from 9 till midnight, we play this. I need a one dance. And this. Radio Dixie 91.3 FM.
I take the road less traveled, run free, unwind, unravel someplace outside with lots to do. Green trees, red rocks, and don't forget that blue sky. The sunshine shining, sunshine pouring on me. Think I might just stay a while. Say hooray all day because the sun is gonna shine on me. Sun is gonna shine on me. Sun's gonna shine on me.
The Dixie State Stretch Internet Portal and the RMAC Network is your home for all Trailblazer athletics live streaming. Don't miss a second of the action. You can watch DSU games home and away at portal.stretchinternet.com/Dixie State. That's portal.stretchinternet.com/Dixie State.
Women's basketball team just off its first weekend sweep of the RMAC season. And here to help us break it down is junior guard Allie Franks. She's also the reigning Defensive Player of the Week. First off, thanks for being here. I know you rushed up here from practice and weights, so we're excited to have you here on the show. But we had to get you on and first of all, congratulate you on Defensive Player of the Week. And I felt like could have been both. Your numbers were up there. We talked about that on the show earlier, but congratulations. What was your action when you found out that you were going to be Defensive Player of the Week?
I honestly had no idea. Like, we were just sitting in, I think we were just going over film, and Lisa's all like, congrats. And I was all like, what? And she's like, congrats, dude. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she's like, coach will say something. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm so confused. And then coach just let everyone know he's like Defensive Player of the Week and congratulated everyone. And I did not expect it though at all, but I'm super happy. That meant a lot.
Yeah, and like we said, you know, we put you up for Offensive Player of the Week as well, and you felt like you could have had that. It could have been a sweep because you were great. I mean, you were pulling down those defensive boards, you know, like they were going out of style. Like you might not ever have a chance to get another rebound. And then you had blocks, you had steals, and you were all over the place last weekend. So congrats on a great weekend this last weekend as well. That was fun. I wanted to ask you as we jump here into the interview. It's been, you know, it's your junior season. Was kind of an interesting one to start. You started coming off the bench. Mm-hmm. Coach Gustin has always preached, and I'm sure he told you that, hey, just because you don't start, you know, my starters aren't necessarily the 5 best players on the team. It's all about rotations. But real quickly, he saw that he needed to have you in the starting lineup, and it's just been fun to see a player like you that, you know, you're willing to do whatever the team needs to do to succeed. You know, how over these last few years in college play have you been able to build that mindset? You know, team first, you know, if I need to come off the bench, that's fine. I mean, you're leading the team in scoring, even when you were coming off the bench. So how are you able to build that mindset to just say, hey, team first, let's go out and get these wins? Yeah,
so when it comes down to it, I mean, my personal mentality was when I touch the court, I'm not giving coach a reason to take me out. You know, I'm going to do everything I can. So, I mean, looking back, I mean, you shouldn't be able to notice my efforts in the beginning of the year coming off the bench to my efforts now. Because to me, it doesn't matter. It's just what you give when you get the chance.
You know, obviously, Allie, you know, Carrick mentioned coming into your junior season, you've already seen in just the 2.5 years, 2+ years that you've been here, a lot of changes, right? First you came in and you were in the Pac-West, and your team was kind of struggling in your freshman and maybe even into your sophomore season. And now your junior season, you're into the RMAC, a new conference, and the team's starting to play a lot better. What's kind of been special about this year's team as you've kind of seen them grow and evolve in the 3 years that you've been here?
Yeah, so I can honestly say every year coming in, it's been a change. Like, nothing's been consistent. And it's not like it's not our fault or our coach's fault, just Dixie's changing so much, like there's nothing we can do about it. But I can honestly say, like, this team is special. And I swear I say that to everyone that asks me about something. I'm like, this team's special. Like, everyone comes up, they show up at practice, they're ready to, you know, give it their all. Everyone's diving even in practice. Like, you can look at every single person and you know they all want to be here. And I think that's the first time that you can go around the room that no one, like, there's not a flaw in effort every day.
There's been a lot of special moments already in this season, and we're barely halfway through. And I know Carrick and I have fond memories just of this season alone. You know, being the play-by-play broadcasters. Let's go back. I know it's been a few weeks now from that triple overtime game against St. Martin's.
She's like, I was hoping.
I know, that's my favorite game.
Let's revisit that a little bit. Obviously, it was a very fun game, and you know, to win it in that sort of fashion. What's it like playing in that game where it's, you know, it seemed like you guys were down to your last, you know, life multiple times, down by 4, down by 5 in different overtime periods. What's it like playing a game like that, and how does it feel to win a game like that?
Yeah, so first of all, like, I go into every game, like, fingers crossed we're going to overtime, you know, because 40 minutes at the end of the day, like, that's not enough basketball, you know? So I'm hoping, like, every time we get some overtime, and, like, I want to win a 100-point game, you know? Like, women's basketball, first of all, never gets 100-point games. So the fact that, like, you got that chance and, like, we won it. But no, I mean, we practice, like, 5-minute games, like, in practice. So I think that, like, helped us to, like, it's a fresh start, you know, just like practice. We get another 5 minutes on top of each other. Oh, it was so fun, though. That game is so special.
Yeah, obviously, me and Carrick, you know, talked about one of the Trailblazer's shot came up on our top 10 list of top plays from the first fall semester at number 2. In fact, you know, let's go back to that play. I mean, obviously, you come into the huddle, you're down by 3, you know, into overtime already. What does Coach Gustin say to you? I mean, obviously you're a very capable three-point shooter. Trailblazer, multiple other players on the team, very capable three-point shooters. What's the huddle like? Do you go in saying, "Coach, I want my last shot," or give it to Rochelle? She's been hot. How does that kind of huddle go in that situation?
Yeah, no, it's definitely our team. You trust whoever's going to put up that shot, and with that play, I mean, Blaz is phenomenal as going off that single pick, and if she has a shot, she's good at noticing it, and so I 100% trusted her. Like, you give her the ball, she'll notice if it's a three, she'll notice if it's a kick out, and I mean, that kid saw that shot and she took it.
I mean, I'm wondering if it's, like a paper, rock, scissors thing, or like an arm wrestle in there in the huddle, because you were having a fantastic game as well. I mean, you had a career high in that game, 23 points, and everyone was hitting. You had, it's like you get a three-pointer, you get a three-pointer, everyone had a three-pointer in that game as well. But you mentioned how fun it was to get over 100 points. I'm not sure if you knew this or read the recap, whatever. That was actually the most points scored in a single game in Dixie State women's basketball history. At least in the NCAA Division II era. So it certainly was a fun game. What was the conversations like when that game was over? I mean, everyone's all smiles.
Goodness,
you just played, almost a whole extra half, and not only did you play that long, you scored over 100 points and you got the win. So, what was the conversation like coming off the floor that night?
The conversation was quick, definitely. I mean, no one could sit down. Everyone was freaking out, And Coach's huge thing is celebrating wins. I mean, because college games are hard to win at the end of the day. Like, this stuff isn't easy. And Coach, let us know he was proud. We fought, we gave it our all. We never, held up, we never gave up. And he just said, celebrate it. We'll pick it up after the weekend. But no, we needed to celebrate that one because you're not going to get that chance very often.
Let's talk a little about the RMAC again. We talked about, a lot of the changes that you've gone through, and Drayson hinted at it, that one of the big ones is the new conference. You play your first 2 years in the Pac West, and now you're in the RMAC. And we asked the coaches a lot, but certainly it's got an effect on the players as well. What's it been like after 2 years in the Pac West to adjusting to that new RMAC schedule? Maybe the trips themselves don't feel quite as long because you're not leaving on a Wednesday and coming home on a Sunday like would happen sometimes in the Pac West, or being gone for 10 straight days.
Yeah.
But you leave on a Thursday, you get a little practice in that day, you play Friday, you travel, you play Saturday. So what's it been like from a player's perspective, adjusting to that RMAC schedule?
So I'm definitely a fan. I know because missing school on those NorCal trips and SoCal trips and even the Hawaii trip was so stressful to me. And I felt like I was balancing school on top of basketball. But now it's a short trip. And my favorite thing is okay, you have a rough night Friday night, we get to play again. The next morning you can wake up and you get another chance. You killed on Friday, okay, you get a chance to do it again. And I love back-to-back because it just feels like I'm just playing basketball, and that's a dream. That's all you want to do. I love it though.
Let's talk a little bit about, Carrick's probably going to obviously make fun of me because I always ask this question about practice, because I'm always fascinated with practice.
Talking about
Talking about practice. So when I played basketball in high school, and I never really liked practice, and that's probably why I've never played past high school. And so tell me a little bit about what's practice like? What do you like most about practice? What do you like least about practice? How is it like with Coach Gustin?
So we've been focusing a lot on defense because, as you can see, the games we win, our defense, you can't pull a lot of flaws about it. So lately, it's a lot of a heavy focus on defense. And if something slows up, Coach will instantly snap us, and he's like, hey, if I catch someone not giving it all, you're going up and down, in the stadium. And it's probably my favorite thing because it's easy to lose focus. Practice is so long. And so when you have when you have a punishment on the line, your butt's gonna stay focused. So that's definitely my favorite thing. I have no complaints about practice though. The harder the better. I love it.
You talked about a little bit of defense. I want to ask you a little bit about that because that's been one of the staples for you guys all season. It seems like anytime you look up into the box score, you guys are forcing 15 plus turnovers, sometimes even over 20 turnovers, getting a lot of steals, and playing very well defensively. How much is that play a factor in kind of who you guys are as a team and your identity? And is that really kind of your focus? Obviously, there's a lot of other things to go into a game, but what kind of defensive identity do you guys want to have as a team?
So we definitely want to, our main focus is we want to make the other team uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It's easy if you can run your stuff, but if we take them out of that, then, it's advantage us. So if we're focusing on defense, I mean, we have good players on offense, and it's college basketball, so you put the time in on offense on your own. You can go get shots. Like when we're together, like as a team in practice, like coaches focus is defense because that's something you can't exactly focus on your own. So team focus is basketball or on defense, and you got to put time in the gym on your own, get our shots going.
Chatting with women's basketball junior guard Allie Franks here on Trailblazer Weekly, and just about 5 minutes left on the show, just enough time to ask you a couple more questions, and we've got some fun rapid fire questions for you at the end. It's always interesting to look at. I mean, you came here, you've played all 3 years here now, and that your first year, I mean, you played a ton as a freshman. How much did that help, as a sophomore and as a junior? Now it just feels like old hat because you're used to just being on the floor all the time.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an advantage, and I got lucky, like, coming in with this situation. Coming in as a freshman, getting the playing time I did, it definitely built my confidence, though, because the coach trusted me. First I earned his trust. He didn't start me as a freshman, given, and he told me, though, he's like, I want you to get minutes here. He's like, but I'm not going to hand them to you. He's like, that's not how I do it around here. And I was like, that's a challenge. I'll do it. So I put my head down, and I just had to get his trust and prove it that I could do it as a freshman.
Of course, maybe some people don't know this, some of our audience, but I'm sure almost everyone knows it by now. You're a twin.
Yeah.
When you came here with your twin sister, Kylie. She went on LDS mission. We're here to talk about you. I don't want you to feel like, it's always that twin thing, but, give us an update on Kylie. Is she back yet, or how soon is she back, or,
Yeah,
you just haven't seen her for a while?
She gets back in 2 months.
Okay.
Less than 2 months. My mom, it's like 48 days. You get texts on updates when it comes to that, but goodness, I know. I couldn't be more excited to have her back. I adjusted to it. Last year was definitely a challenge, being without the person I've been with my entire life. But I definitely grew into my own person, and that's something we both needed. Yeah. But I couldn't tell you how excited I am to have her back.
Yeah, that's why I was hesitant to bring it up, because it was we're here to talk about Allie.
She's my best friend. It's only fair.
But I knew it had to be getting close, because it's been a little while. So that'll be fun. And is she planning on coming back to Dixie? I mean, we can't. Cool.
I think that's her plan. I just told her, I was like, let me know when you get back. I was like, I don't want you thinking about that when you're away.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that would be too much stress for her.
Absolutely, yeah. Women's basketball junior guard Allie Franks. Drayson, we've got some rapid fire questions we've got to ask her before we wrap up the interview. We do it with everybody. Don't worry, it's nothing too stressful. It's fun. So Drayson, why don't you start it off?
Let's start it off. So Allie, we ask a lot of our basketball guests we have on favorite basketball player, NBA, WNBA, college, favorite basketball player, past or present.
Jason Tatum right now.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Boston Celtics?
Boston Celtics.
Very good, very good.
Didn't he take that shot the other night? Kyrie was mad because
that was Gordon Hayward.
Because Gordon Hayward passed it to Tatum.
Right, yeah, he was
instead,
mad.
Right?
Is it?
Yeah. Anyway.
He missed the buzzer. Anyway, sorry.
Good thing he shot it. I don't care.
Next one, favorite venue you either played in or watched a game in or even been to. What would that be? Favorite arena?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh gosh. Utah State last year. BYU's gym is probably pretty similar, but when we walked in Utah State and they had all those kids and just the atmosphere, it was packed. I mean, it's every Hooper's dream to, play in a packed gym, and I mean, that was so fun. You couldn't even hear your own thoughts though, it was so loud. But it was so sick.
I remember watching that game on the stream, and I had to mute it because
it was so
kids
loud
were
in there.
driving me crazy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having to play in there. But
no, that was definitely a challenge. But just looking around, not seeing an empty seat, it's like, yeah, this is sick.
I got one more question for you, and then Carrick, you can kick it off. What's the favorite accomplishment that you've had in your career, whether it be collegiate, high school? Maybe it was a game winner you had. Maybe it was you scored 50 points. What is your favorite moment from your career that you've accomplished?
Oh, it's the triple overtime win. Just the fact that we hit 100 points and we won with it. I'm obsessed with overtime, so that's triple overtime, 100-point win.
Right on.
Yeah.
Who is wrapping it up here? Obviously, I know who your favorite team is right now. It's your team, but professionally, who's your favorite team? Is it the Celtics? I mean, Tatum's your favorite player. Do you like watching the Celtics? Who do you like? What NBA, WNBA team do you like?
Yeah, so I grew up Celtics fan, and then I discovered Kawhi Leonard, and I was like, oh, this guy, both sides of the court, he's legit. And then I watched Popovich keep coaching, and I was like, man, that's my dream coach. I want to play for him. And then Kawhi left, and so I've been watching the Celtics again because Jason Tatum is amazing. So now I go back and forth. I love the Celtics, and I love the Spurs. I can't pick one.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. We're out of time here on the show, but thanks so much for joining us and helping us all get to know you a little bit better. And we wish you the best of luck this weekend in Colorado and next weekend. That'll be a couple of long weekends.
Yeah, 4 wins on the road.
And then back into the Burns for almost the whole month of February.
Yes.
So she is Dixie State women's basketball junior guard Allie Franks. Thanks again for joining us. Another edition of Trailblazer Weekly is in the books. Remember, you can watch the show anytime on demand at youtube.com/Dixie State Athletics. For Drayson Ball and the entire CEC TV crew, and for Allie Franks, I'm Carrick Segmiller. Thank you for making us part of your day. We'll see you next week. Go Trailblazers.